Hello, everyone. I'm Rohini Walker. I'm the co-creator of Luna Arcana and the editor of Luna Arcana, and I do some other things. But here on Luna Arcana's YouTube channel, I am here as co-creator of Luna Arcana, and I'm talking today to JD Rudometkin, who is one of the lovely, amazing contributors for our new issue, on brand new issue of Luna Arcana, issue 6, which JD hasn't even got a copy of yet, but that will soon be rectified. And JD's written an amazing short story for this issue. It's really quite indescribable. And he's going to read it today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. And JD lives here in the desert. He's a multidisciplinary artist working mainly in writing, music, cinema, and art. And he's, yes, very talented in lots of different mediums. And he's also created a lovely piece of art to go with the short story, which I can see behind him in the distance. Yes. So so you can get a sense of it as he's reading the story. And yeah, JD, over to you. I mean, you don't have, yeah, say a few words before you begin.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rohini, for having me. It's an honor to be here talking with you about this story and reading it. And also, it's just an honor to be in the magazine. I've loved Luna Arcana for a long time, probably since it started, and I would see it in various locations around town, and I would think, gosh, it's just the kind of feel that I like, and it's got some qualities that feel like they resonate with me. And so the other day I walked into Hey There, which is a store in Joshua Tree that carries it, and there it was, and that's the first time I saw it, and I leafed through, and there was the piece, and it just felt really good to be part of the magazine. So thank you for including me.
Well, thank you for being a part of it and for being patient, because this issue took a little while. But it's here. Yeah, I love your piece, so I'm
Thank you.
excited to
Yeah.
explore it with you today.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful magazine. I love how it has the thickness of the paper, and it's almost like an art book more than a magazine now to me. It feels that way, and I really like that sensibility too. So great choice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's you know, kind of needed. Well, she said that she wanted to evolve into something new, so here she is in a new
Yes,
form.
listening to what the art wants. Right?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
exactly, and it's very on theme with your story, the
Oh,
practice of
yeah.
listening.
That's amazing how that happens. So I'll go ahead and read the piece now.
Yeah,
And
please do. Yeah.
yeah, the woman with exceptional ears. She burnt her tarot cards and then poured her exquisite perfume into the shower drain as if it were an offering. She purified herself in the hottest water she could find until her skin fell off in flakes of ancient rage. Then she took her colorful robes down to the Goodwill store and gave her cats to the blind widow on East Centaur Street. Back in her room, she laid down upon the cold cement, as if in prayer. And, as if in love, she retired all her diaries, which were filled with the self-fulfilling prophecies of what she had once wanted from the world and all its charms. Last Tuesday morning, she did not attend the spiritual awareness group meeting at the ashram. Instead, she dressed herself in sackcloth and poured ashes upon her head. And then the woman sat in front of the fire all day without making a sound. She did not utter the name of her ex-boyfriend or speak of her ex dandy, or whisper a single word about her mother, or 1,000 other wounds that kept her reading books about how to win big. She sat there upon the cold cement and wept. She wept for the part of her that was dying, and not because she was sad, but because that part had wanted to die a long, long time ago. That tender part of her that believed it had to be the center of the universe, because there is no center of the universe. In a shroud of sackcloth and covered in ashes, she gradually became the ugliest woman in the world. Frail and weak was she as her breasts fell apart and her womb stopped bleeding. Even the angels of the silences had to turn their backs. And then it happened. On the first day of the 7th month, the victim ghost of her mind's eye stood up and left the body and walked out of her room. Her ashen face, her blackened teeth, swollen eyes, and all of these things are clearly seen. And still, she loved herself. And that's when her ears began to grow, slowly at first, of little nubs and budding leaves, and the sound of her father eating soup alone. And she began to hear the neighbor's dog dreaming of bone marrow and of wild rabbit. Her ears were 4 inches tall now, sprouting near the crown of her head. And for the first time in her life, she could hear the sound of babies crying in the barrel chests of rougher men. Her mind was clearing. There was no space for doubt therein. And thus, the woman could no longer finish those imaginary sentences of handsome girls she thought would never love her. 5, 6, 7 inches now above her skull. And then, after a year of listening, she gradually began to hear sound waves moving within a given word. And it was there, within the recesses of antiquity and a commonwealth, that she began to know how it felt to possess the name they called Hiroshima, and the numbers 9/11, and the icy knot of code blue. 8, 9, 10. And then it happened that at inch 11 above her head, these prehistoric ears left the field of sound altogether. And now she can feel the little gusts of emotion in the silences between. She has become a witness to the parts in us and of us that cannot lie. And so it came to pass in those days that people from as far away as Chesapeake Bay or Santiago de Compostela would travel long distances to sit in her sparse desert room, just to be with her, just to rest there in front of her quiet distillation, as if to be seen for the first time. And having been witnessed there within the quiet room, they would come undone before her, and she would hear a single tear hit the cement floor and fall apart. And they would know she had heard that tear hit because her very posture spoke to them in ways only their darker cavities could comprehend. There was no hero, no guru in her room, no savior or being saved. Because, as we all know, those days are gone now. Those cults of personality have become useless in the face of kindness. The last time I saw her, she was swaying in the wind beside an apple tree at the edge of town. The color had returned to her face, and she was drinking lion's milk from an earthen jug. Somehow, her body had grown vigorous again, as if the Christ had risen within her ribs, as if she were born again. And beside the tree there, she said she had heard the cooing of her own death and the moaning of a lover she would one day meet in Salzburg. She said she could feel the flight of doves within her womb and had tasted the child's breath. And she said that all these things had happened already and that it would happen once again. And then she turned to me and looked into my mind, and I heard her there crawling around my skull, planting seeds. And then my mouth stopped moving and my ears began to itch.
Thank you. That was beautiful, beautifully read, and just beautiful words. Thank you. How do you feel reading it?
I've read it a couple days to just kind of see how it felt because I hadn't seen it for a while. And I cried both times. And there's a lot of emotion in there for me still, which is interesting because when you write, you look at it so much that sometimes you get sick of a piece of writing. But I think because I haven't seen it for a while and experienced it, it just brought a lot of things back into me that I've experienced. And I also think it's like medicine. I think art and writing and whatever you're doing to create something is just a way to figure something out, a way to work something out that you're trying to, maybe you don't have an answer for, maybe you never will have an answer for, but it lives there and words resonate, which is always such an amazing thing to me, that a word can resonate even if you're silently reading it. It has a hum, it has a rhythm, it has a way to move you in subtle ways that are like physical. They're visceral and physical. So that's and so just now it felt a little different than the other two times because I think I knew I was reading it here. But there were times when the emotions still came through. And you always wonder if you're reading it to somebody else, if you're biasing. You're always going to bias the reading no matter what, if you're emphasizing certain words. But also reading it flat doesn't seem right either.
No, you read it beautifully. Yeah, you read it beautifully. Thank you. And I mean, I don't have, a personal connection to the story like you do, like you are the author of it. But when I read it, each time I read it, it evokes something really quite deep in me. And it's hard to put words on what, like you say, the words themselves that you've chosen and used evoke certain things, and the images and certain, just there's so much that I feel when I'm reading this story. And it's hard, it's not like, oh, I feel this, or it reminds me of this, or it's just really kind of, it feels kind of almost, just that place beyond words that your words are touching. So
that makes me emotional to hear that, because that's the kind of art that I like the best. When art hits me in that way, beyond language, even writing, it's so moving. There's an author, she's a playwright, Carol Churchill, and I was in a play of hers called Far Away years ago, and none of us really knew what the hell the play meant. We didn't know what it meant. It was about war. We knew that much, and they were making these wild hats. And other than that, it was just this visceral reaction. And I, for one, just loved it because of that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, because that's the thing, you don't have to kind of explain it in a linear way. I remember when you first sent me the story, and I read it, my first, I had a similar kind of, each time I read it, I have a different kind of, like a different emotion gets evoked. And I was, I just had a similar, very emotional, felt sense response to it. And I guess one of the things that really resonated about it for me is because it's not the same at all, but it had a similar fragrance, like a similar taste to Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I know it's not the same at all, and I love his work.
yes.
So it just that kind of magical realism aspect. And I think I said that to you in email. But what was the seed of inspiration for this amazing piece of writing?
Yeah. I don't know if it's one seed exactly. There's, you know, the spiritual communities that I've been a part of my whole life in various forms are probably all in there in some way, in terms of like the things that we all do to make sense of the world and to try to heal wounds or process what it is to be a human, through tarot cards or through spiritual group meetings or church or meditation. I mean, there's all these tools, and then another specific seed, I guess, is a friend of mine was going through some hard times. She's been wounded, and it felt like, as I observed her for quite a while, it felt like there was a wound there that, and maybe several wounds there that were trying to be healed in a way that, on the outside, it didn't seem like all the techniques were working. It felt like there was some bypassing going on. Some maybe energy and intention directed in a way that was not as useful as it could be. There are so many tools we can use to heal ourselves, and sometimes we employ them and they're not always great. For example, I think therapy is wonderful. I have been to therapy. I continue to see a counselor, and oftentimes I think, though, that what can happen in this therapy as a tool is that we go there and we complain and we regurgitate our wounds about our mothers and our lovers, and beyond the point where the healing can take place, perhaps. And of course, nobody can judge that. Nobody can say where that should begin or end. But I think one of the tools. Are we still going, or are we glitching?
Yeah, it paused for a moment, but you're back. It just paused for just a second. Am I paused?
Oh,
Can
okay.
you hear me?
You. I think you froze for a second. I think
Yeah,
I think,
you did
I
as
think
well.
the spirits are telling me to chill the fuck. Can I? Do I have to use proper language, or am I?
No, you can swear. You can
Okay.
swear. It's
Sometimes
fine.
it's the right word for the right occasion.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, I think maybe I'm being told here to be careful about what I say, because it's hard to jump into anybody's life and give them advice about how to heal themselves. But I think that there obviously are things that I've been through, and certain spiritual tools that I employ have worked better than others. And when I've gone to therapy and counseling, if I'm only there to regurgitate and to go back to my childhood and then talk about it again, I don't know that I'm moving forward past that into some other reality that I want to live in. And so I often ask from my counselor or my therapist, can you please tell me things that I'm not seeing here in myself, so that I can move out of this classroom into the next one?
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not going around that spiral, that same old spiral of, yeah, just the complaining and the reliving.
Yes, yes. I want to go. I want to move beyond if possible. Maybe it's not possible, but I do want to try.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I so resonate with a lot of what you're saying, just and especially you speaking to that kind of bypassing that sometimes happens within certain healing spaces, spiritual spaces, and because I'm very much involved in sort of healing work and kind of help, trauma informed work. Um, and yeah, for me, it was when I first started on the kind of healing path. There was a lot of that bypassing that actually made things worse. So as you were saying, as you were observing your friend, things were getting kind of maybe a bit worse before. And then as the story continues, did she kind of release all that? Is that what you saw her do, or is that your own kind of, is that your own imagination working through what
Yeah,
you saw
that
in her?
that became fictional, and even though my friend may have been a seed to plant it, the reason I can write about it like this is because I feel like I've lived it too in a certain way. I
Mm,
think everything we
mm,
write about, we have empathy for in some way. Even if we haven't lived it specifically, we have a deep resonance and empathy for it too. And maybe even what I'm writing about is what I hope will happen to me. Maybe I hope that someday I'll be so good at hearing that I'll go beyond sound and know the feeling of what somebody is
mm,
telling me in the silences between the words.
mm,
And I think that is maybe like a goal of mine as a person who works in the spiritual arts as well, through art, but through also the spiritual work I do with rituals and weddings and ceremonies and all kinds of things. And that's probably why I can write about it as well, is because I've been in this, ever since I was a young man, even a boy. I'd been up in front of church talking to people and in sermons or talks, and then from there moving into other communities that are use other elements of spirituality, and so. Um, Yeah, it's interesting with when you create art to kind of think about where you begin and end, where the person you're thinking
mm,
about, the inspiration begins and ends. And maybe that person is a mirror for me in reflecting parts of me back that I am hoping to change in myself,
mm.
still. And,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. And I just like one of the most one of the really compelling things about this story is just the way that she releases everything
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
comes
mm-hmm,
back to this kind of, I'm trying to find it in the, but this that release of all the accoutrements, and and then this loss of self followed by this rebirth, this kind of death, rebirth, the whole death rebirth cycle that happens in the story, but in this really kind of just this really organic way, not in the way of like following a a teaching or a tradition, just in this sort of following one's own inner knowing and guidance to just, lie down on the floor and let it all happen.
mm, mm. And she gave her cats away. I mean, those cats are precious to people, and so are clothing. So is clothing. It's our identity. Cats are our companions. Our spiritual groups that we meet with are our community. They bring us meaning, and this character kind of guts it, and just weeps, and
Mm,
um, And the first realization that kind of comes when she's weeping is that she's always wanted to not be the center of the universe, even though that's what she's been crawling to do all this time with all of these things, is to keep herself at the center of the universe through maybe all of these spiritual tools. And therein lies the subtlety of spirituality that maybe goes beyond language, is that you have to die in a way that doesn't involve all of those things at a certain point. You have to go lie down, face down on the earth sometimes, and I've done this. You know, you've probably experienced this, where only the ground can save you. I've been there many times where only the ground and only the rocks can save me. That's it. Nothing, no teaching, no guru, no method is going to work right now. It's hurt so bad. And so I just go lie on the rocks and the dirt. And any solution that I'm trying to think up in my conscious thinking mind is not going to work right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's that letting go of that grasping, that kind of, I'm the center of the universe, so I need this kind of, the neediness has to be released into just this allowing.
And it's hard. It's hard because we want solutions.
It's really hard.
We want solutions. We want a plan to follow. And there are all kinds of us that live somewhere on the spectrum they call the spectrum. You know, there's all kinds of names that go with it. You know, dyslexia is in there maybe somewhere, autism, bipolarities. You know, maybe almost every human is somewhere on that. So I don't know if it's a spectrum or just a loop of oddities. And I don't even know sometimes if I even like to say it, but because it seems to be a self-fulfilling prophecy at times as well. But the point is, when we are experiencing ourselves somewhere on this spectrum, it feels good to grab onto something, to hold just a thread of hope. Just give me a thread of, please tell me what to do here so that I can follow ABCD, so I can save myself from this dark cloud of depression.
I mean, I've been there many times. And but as you say, it's that releasing with nature, where there's going to be no linear ABC steps given to you, but that listening that has to arise. And I love that you honed in on that, the superpower that she, as we can see in the picture, that is, you know, of listening, that, and eventually that at 11 inches, these prehistoric ears left the field of sound altogether. And that kind of, that transcending of just all of it. And I love that the listening, because our sense of sound, like our auditory sense, is like when an anesthesiologist, I can never say that word properly, when they put someone under, you know, all their sense perceptions are shut down, except for hearing, because that's the kind of most finest sense perception. And if that goes, then that's the closest that person has come to dying. So they don't you know, so they keep so that's why a lot of people who are having surgery don't, you know, they don't feel anything, but they remember hearing like surgeons talking to each other and stuff. So, you know, that kind of, it's that closest, it's that kind of most subtlest and finest sense perception, which after we've lost that, then we've kind of gone into like an unconscious state, or like a kind of near-death state. So just that she just honed in on that as the kind of finality of her previous self before she even transcended that. Is I just love that.
Yes, all of that. That's beautiful the way you said all that. And I don't even know if I thought of it exactly like that. So that's amazing when art can be reinterpreted by a reader. And in a very practical sense, the art of listening and the art of hearing is seldom esteemed in our lives. You know, I mean, how many people do a mantra, I will listen better, I will become a better listener? I mean, most people are creating like mantras that I see myself making a lot of money and becoming well known in my community for ABC, and I see myself in love and having a beautiful partner that understands me. You know, like so many of these spiritual practices are kind of co-opted into a place where it all is about me. And I think that is a dead end road oftentimes. And so, you know, it's almost like put in your mantra, you know, I am going to become the best listener I can possibly ever become. I am going to learn how to ask the most acute, precious question that I can. I'm going to perfect the art of the question and the art of listening and the art of hearing somebody between the words that they say, so that I take in the whole person and I perceive them and I sit with them. And when they're with me, they know they're being heard. And when they know they're being really heard deeply on a deeply, deeply emotional level, they know they're loved. Maybe for the first time in their life, they know they're loved, you know. And how often do any of us get heard like that, in that way? You know,
Yeah,
I think it's rare. It's rare for me, you know.
it definitely is. I mean, I mean, yeah, just digesting everything you said, because it's just so beautiful. And that, you know, that is the biggest, most truthful expression, most profound expression of love, to just really be able to listen to the wholeness, and not just be thinking, oh, here's what my response is going to be, or here's what I want to say. And you know, and I'm so guilty of that in relationship and partnership. You know, it's like, well, I'm constantly interrupting my partner, and he's like, you know, listen. And my work is listening. I work, you know, but when it comes to these very personal relationships, it's like, yeah, that goes away somehow. And yeah, so, and it's a really profound gift that you can give, like an act of real true love. Yeah.
It's such a precious gift. In one tool I learned, I took this workshop for couples one time, and it was called How to Fight Fair, or something like that. Fighting fair, or something like that. And one of the tools that they taught us was, oh man, it's basically reflective listening. Like therapists often do this reflective listening. But if you're in an argument with your lover, it's so deeply personal beyond anything. The more intimate the contact, the more vulnerability is there, the more tension can be there, the more the feeling of protecting the heart is there, because, oh my God, you've opened your heart to this person in such intimate ways, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. There's very few people in the world that get to experience that with, you know. And so this tool allows a person to be heard, because one person takes the role of listener and continues to ask questions until that person feels satisfied. And then there's such a feeling of like release when that happens, if you haven't felt like your partner is hearing you. Like, oh my God, you finally understood. I finally got to express what I really feel. You know what I mean? And then their role is to listen until and then you restate what they said, and then you ask after that, did I get it right? And then the partner says, well, you got most of it right, but this part is not quite right. It's more like this. And so then you
Yeah.
refine. And sometimes as you're doing that, you're discovering more and more about what you really feel instead of just your anger and defensiveness. And
Mm.
I love that tool.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful.
Oh, it's such a, and when I do weddings, I'm getting a little bit more brave now when I talk to couples because I I start mentioning that tool. I start saying, you know, this has been an amazing tool for me and here's kind of how it works. And maybe you guys want to employ this in your life after you get married.
You're like giving them some pre-wedding counsel.
So far, no, so far they still hire me.
Yeah. I'm like, well, maybe. But what I really like that because this part of your story, like just what you described about that listening within intimate in an intimate partnership, that's like the closest that you are to another person, and that gift of listening, um and just this bit where you are describing like when people came to see her,
Hmm.
um and yeah, having been witnessed within the quiet room, they would come undone before her, and she would hear a single tear hit the cement floor and fall apart. And they would know she had heard that tear hit because her very posture spoke to them in ways only their darker cavities could comprehend. That
Hmm.
really, yeah, that really remind, that's that she became that presence of, that really intimate presence of just being there and listening and understanding, wordless understanding, where the other person knows that they've been fully received and understood.
Mm. Yes, it's so rare and so beautiful. And
Mm.
it reminds me of like the eye gazing exercise sometimes they do, where a couple or two friends will sit and look into each other's eyes for like a minute or 2 minutes straight. And you just keep looking and you don't look away. You just stay there. And something happens. I've done that just a handful of times. And something happens there in the communication that is so interesting and like, and if you just keep letting yourself get more and more vulnerable and taking off the shields, it just like
Mm.
you start to then feel like some portal opens up beyond language. And
Mm-hmm.
it also reminds me of my dad, who the last 5 years of his life slowly lost his voice more and more and more. And so I would go and sometimes take care of him for the weekend and give my mom a break, and he could no longer really speak. So I would make him some dinner, and some after as he was eating, he would just look at me, and he would just communicate to me with his eyes that he appreciated the food, that it was he appreciated me, he appreciated our time together, and he knew probably in some level, at least that's how I interpreted it, that his time was limited. So our time was limited. And he did all that just by looking at me. So it's amazing what happens when language disappears, but presence remains and
Mm-hmm.
becomes even more significant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And you were able to receive his communication by your presence as well. So, yeah, because it's hard to stay present when you're in that kind of very, yeah, just really, that loss is coming and you're just present, and you could just busy yourself with busy work, but you're there as well receiving. So that's, yeah. And the words that you use like really, really express and describe that wordless presence.
Yeah, I mean when we say Hiroshima, when we say
Mm.
when we say 9/11, and when we say code blue, uh, my dad went into code blue multiple times in the last 5 years of his life where we all thought he was gone. And so
Mm.
whenever I hear the word code blue now, I never knew what that never had any kind of resonance for me before. Now when I hear the word code blue, I know what people feel, and I know
Mm-hmm.
what that experience is. And those words are like, they carry something. And the
Yeah.
word Hiroshima carries something for all of us too in the world now. Most
Mm-hmm.
people in the world, when they hear that word, they think of what happened there, you know. And so she in the story kind of was able to feel deep into those words and sit with, it seems like she was sitting with them and understanding what they meant.
Yeah. Yeah. And feeling the words, that
Mm.
felt sense of the words. Um, yeah. And there's, I mean, I feel like we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but the the bit where you write, there was no hero, no guru in her room, no savior or being saved. Because as we know, those days are gone now. Those cults of personality have become useless in the face of kindness.
Mm.
I found that really compelling. In the face of kindness, that kind
Mm.
of simplicity of kindness can dissolve these grand structures and cults of personality,
Mm.
which it can.
Yes. I mean, I've spent a lot of my life uh, looking for satisfaction through things that are recognition. You know, like through recognition, through people wanting to be recognized. You know, and it still feels good when I go into Hey There, I see Luna Arcana, I pick it up, and there's my piece of writing with my picture painting in the book. It does. There's something about it that feels good, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the older you get, and after you have some successes in life, you know they feel good, um, but they aren't the only thing. And like, you know, sometimes I'm sitting there teaching. I've been in education for many years, and I'll be teaching a student a simple lesson, and that's all that I might do for that 2 hours is teach this student this simple lesson in a classroom with just one person. And at the end of the day, their cognitive skills become more acute, and they learn how to read and comprehend maybe for the first time in their life. And it's just me and them in the room. And at the end of the day, you go home and you're like, damn, that felt good. You know, I wasn't a rock star in front of like a bunch of people, but I help that person do, they're like in their 40s or 50s, and for the first time in their life, they know how to break down a paragraph and read
Mm-hmm.
it to comprehend, not just to get through it, to read it with
Mm-hmm.
resonance. And, you know, that's kindness. That's like how kindness can like get rid of all of these things that are, you know, why do we reverence an actor's opinion more than anybody else's? It's a bit odd. It's not that they don't count, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
do, but you know, let's, you know, and it's not just that. It's not just actors. We reverence, you know, Eckhart Tolle. You know, we can put that person on a big pedestal. The love guru in India who hugs everybody. You know, we can set that person up as like the end all. And when that happens, what I see as the limiting factor there is that you're one step removed from source at that point, because you have to go through a medium, you have to go through the priest.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go direct. I want to put my stuff right on the battery. You know, I want to, I
Yeah.
want, I want the
Yeah.
positive and the negative to put right on the battery.
Yeah. And we have that capacity in this really simple way. that doesn't require these intermediaries. And the intermediaries are all great as well. They're pointing to something.
Absolutely. Yes.
But but ultimately to experience it, it requires this dissolving again, this letting go of the cults of personality. They're like, oh, this person is so and so, so they must, what they say must hold more weight than what I have the capacity to feel and know for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all of us that keep journals are writing holy books. We're all writing holy books, sacred texts, scriptures where source is dropping in on us, and we write about our day.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Frank wrote a holy book, you know, Dear Kitty. And it's just as important as Genesis, in my opinion, or the Bhagavad Gita. It's just, and some of it is more pointed and inspired, perhaps, than just recounting of the day. But you know, I really think it's just as relevant, and maybe more relevant, to us if we wrote it.
Well, it's that kind of finding that sacred in just the everyday, the simplicity of, just writing about your day and allowing that to be just as relevant and resonant as a sacred text.
Yes. I mean, there are certain texts that resonate with me so deeply because they're deeply buried within me, like the Bhagavad Gita is one, and the Christian Bible. And sometimes I'll go to a Christian church and the minister will speak in this old world King James type of vernacular idiomatic phrasing, and I'm just like, oh God, it's like better than Shakespeare for me, because it's so in my blood from a childhood that I heard these phrases. You know, the spirit hovered over the waters, void and formless, in Genesis. I mean, Jesus, God, it's like I could, what? It's so holy.
Yeah,
it's
evokes.
It's holy writ for me still. And so there is a beauty in that too, for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But it's that kind of not negating our own kind of direct access to source from within.
Yeah.
While
Yeah.
also enjoying and experiencing, like you experience those words in a very profound way, because it evokes something in you. So that there's not negating that experience either, but just not, one is not better than necessarily.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And it's sometimes language doesn't resonate with certain people as much as other things. The sound of a carpenter hitting a nail. I mean, if you go to a work site and listen to some of these things, there's a rhythm, there's a strange thing, there's a resonance, there's a beauty in just workers doing their work. The simple resonance of a construction site. I collected a bunch of metal from Alaska one time, Homer, Alaska, out on the spit. It's where they were building ships. And I brought like 70 pounds home of scrap metal with me in my backpack. And the workers were not trying to create art. They were just putting holes in metal and leaving it. And to me, I picked it up and I said, this is so pure. This is so resonant to me. And so I still have this stuff. It's outside over here, rusting.
Well, the desert's a great place for rusty metal patina. Because when we first moved here, it was similar. Like 10 years ago now, we moved here from England, and the excitement at finding these rusty cans. Like anyone would think we'd found buried treasure. And I mean, I'm kind of over it now with the
yes.
aesthetic. But at the time, it was, as coming from England, coming from London, it's so different. And just seeing this, like, oh my God, this is pure. This is just so pure. This rusty can or this rusty piece of metal, and we have so much that we're currently in the process of shedding. But it was just like so much excitement at that, just seeing something in that was so just a kind of disruption of everything else, and just like, oh my goodness, this is
Yes.
this is nature doing nature's thing on this piece of metal, and I can see it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And sometimes the art world is very sterile, and calculating and cerebral, especially if you're going to
Hmm.
go get an MFA. It can be very much a process of theorizing and theoretical work, and that's also interesting. I love reading Susan Sontag, and if I pronounce
Hmm.
her, and all of these, even Joan Didion in a way feels sometimes like theory to me in a way,
Hmm.
um, and so there's a beauty in that too, and you can feel the resonance of purity in even in theory, though, I think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that person, they're using 15 syllable words, but that word means a lot to them. They're not just using it to sound intelligent. They're using it to make a point that only that word can make.
Hmm.
And you can feel it, and you're like, damn, woo, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's similar to finding a rusty piece of metal in the desert. It feels pure. They're both
Yeah.
pure. They're both pure.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's this both and. It doesn't have to be this kind of,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I just had something to say, but I forgot. Anyway, it'll come back to me in a minute. Um, so is one of the short stories So Many Things, is one of them a commentary on this insatiable need in our culture to fix ourselves, to improve ourselves? Is, just this kind of hamster wheel of never ending, just like something for the mind to fixate onto? I know we've kind of touched upon it, but just culturally, is are you making is part of it like a kind of cultural commentary on that, do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think that um, at the end of the story, the narrator a seed gets planted in the narrator's mind.
Mm.
He's this, or he or she, or they are this person that is observing all the action. And then I think at one point they threw in a phrase that made it sound like, oh, because there is no center of the universe. The narrator all of a sudden jumped in and said, like, made a very kind of a point, a direct point. They
Hmm.
weren't just telling the story; they made some sort of point. So, oh, there's somebody there, and
Hmm.
it's telling this story. And then we find out that this this narrator who's been observing the whole time becomes a vessel for this
Mm.
for this woman with exceptional ears to plant the seed, and then the ears begin to itch. So um, maybe there's something that's going to happen there to this person, and maybe we are that person, each of us, if we get so lucky as to like happen upon self annihilation.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it doesn't seem very fun when it's happening, of course,
No.
um, and all of the tools that society gives us to use um, can prove helpful at times, and then there are other tools that we can come to if we're willing and we're open to exploring. And I just think it's a lifetime. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a cure all. Even if your ears are 12 feet tall, at the end of the day, you're still going to have to get up in the morning and face depression and people dying in your life and ego and wanting more of the same old tricks guised as
Hmm.
guised as spiritual enlightenment.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, yeah, you've really hit the nail on the head there, because it is that looking for that cure-all that will and you know, I'm guilty of it as much as the next person of yeah, just like once I get to this place, or once I start doing this practice in this way, then I'm going to be completely unflappable, and I'm just going to glide through life. And it's like, it's this forgetting that no, our souls didn't actually come here to glide through life. Our souls didn't choose to incarnate on this human material plane. They would have chosen the angelic realms.
Some other realm. Yes. I mean, you think about what's happening in the world right now, you know, with Palestine and Israel, and with other wars in Ukraine, and with personal relationships that go sideways, you know, in our own microcosm. And the other day I was thinking about it, and I'm like, why does this keep happening? Why? What is going on with us? Are we addicted to drama? Like, you know, like, because it feels like after 2000, after one Messiah after another and all of this, we would somehow be evolving. And bless you, it looked like you're about to sneeze.
I did. Muted myself.
Bless you. That was the most polite, courteous, silent sneeze I've ever heard.
I'm not a polite sneezer, which is why I muted myself.
Oh, good. Very, very good. Savvy is what you are. But anyway, yeah. So I hope that we're evolving. That I really do hope with all my heart, and I do believe that there is some sort of evolution that's happening. But in the meantime, what can we do? You know, I mean, what can we do to find peace, find the deepest inner peace that we possibly can? I think just asking the question sometimes is enough for a day's work. Learning to ask, like just formulating a really good question, asking it pre-dawn, and sitting with it all day.
Yeah, you know, that's a beautiful practice.
And just seeing, okay, I don't have to answer this. My body got the question.
Yeah, I love that. The simplicity of it. And I think, you know, this struggle against our, you know, just fighting against our own experiences and our own perceived sort of shortcomings and imperfections, this constant struggle against it, like just end that battle with yourself and just see what happens. I think that's, you don't need to fight for awakening, just stop fighting with yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And to be willing to wake up every day and try to be hopeful about that, you know, in a new way, because it feels like we're reborn every day in a certain sense. Like we die at night, we go into this subconscious realm of death, and sometimes we have dreams in heaven, you know, and sometimes we dream in hell, and then we wake up again, and here we are. Here we are with the opportunity again to choose what's going to happen to some degree, or choose how to perceive what will happen.
You
know, that's such a gift. Oh my God, what a gift to be able to choose how to perceive something.
Yeah, and to just be able to be present for what it is that's being perceived, and not sort of assign justifications or unnecessary meanings to things that just, you know, just being, I feel like just talking to you now within the context of this story, it's like, you know, I feel like this story really is this kind of like, you know, we're all searching for enlightenment and awakening, and really it's this stripping away of all that, grasping to just this, like, being awake is the capacity to just be present and fine tune those ears and other sense perceptions to perceive and hear. That's the awakened state. It's just right here. And it sounds so simple, but it's because, we live in an age where it's just like information. So, but we don't want to go and live on the top of a mountain in a cave. We're here in this world of all the things. And so, yeah, being present in that and staying awake and present and listening in that.
And I think at some point in our lives, even if it comes only at death, we get the opportunity to lie down flat on the cement and just weep in sackcloth and ashes and realize or feel or experience absolute zero. Nothing makes any fucking sense. Nothing I can think makes any sense. So I give up. I just give up. I just have to lie here and weep on this cold cement. And sometimes that gift gets handed to us at a young age. Some people experience pain at a very, very young age. Mm-hmm. And they become adults by the time they're 7 years old because they've been at that bottom already. And some people experience it in their 20s and 30s. And some people experience that maybe when they die. And they enter into this other realm of like, whoa, none of this, where the fuck am I? None of this, there's no answer here. And then we get to see what happens next. And I just think it's such a weird paradox because it's so painful and there's so much beauty and potential there too.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go through that, like crucifixion, if you will.
Yeah. It's it's the death, the rebirth cycle. And it's, the fighting against the heaviness, the sadness, all of the challenging feelings, the confusion, and then it's like, that kind of coming to that place of emptiness, which is I give up.
Yeah,
that's when it's like, oh, I can finally, source, the divine, the universe, whatever you want to call the our larger self, essentially, can get in, like, okay, they've stopped grasping, they've stopped like looking here and there and Googling everything. They're just lying on the floor. I can I can finally get in now.
Yeah.
And
and I do think guides and teachers help us. I mean, that's why Dante was given Virgil, so that he could take him through hell and show him a few things. And so, like, we all teach each other, give each other little tools. And one of the tools that I learned along the way is that this too shall pass. Like, I've been through this spin cycle of loneliness and sadness so many times now, and also come out the other side, that I know most likely there's a 75% chance in a couple days I'll feel different, and I'll come back and a friend will call, or I'll reach out to somebody and things will change. The loneliness will disappear. I'm not going to be lonely for the rest of my life, even though it feels like in this moment I will be.
Yeah, I mean, to have that support where it's, it's like you don't need to fix anything, you don't need to do anything. Just have someone, if there is someone there just telling you, like, this is completely natural, what you're feeling now. There's nothing wrong with you. Just allow. And so in that sense, having someone, to hold that space when you're flailing against it.
And sometimes it's a book, it's an author, or sometimes you just need to go to a museum and look at a painting, and have it move you and heal you. It's
Mm-hmm.
so have a relationship with the painting. I mean, people don't think
Mm-hmm.
about that very much, but like when I went to this Hans Nemling, this 15th century painter, painted this picture of Jesus, and he looks to me Asian quality. It's an Asian quality to the Jesus. It's hanging on my wall in the other room, and I sat there at the museum in Pasadena, Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena, and I just came around the corner, and there's Jesus staring back at me with this expression and this symbol, and I just sat there, and had a relationship with that for a while, and that was as good as therapy in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
somehow, uh, to be willing to sit there and just, like we rush through museums so much, and I'm starting to learn how to like go really slowly through museums, and
Yeah.
even if I only see
Yeah.
5 things, that's okay,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
people want to just count off, I've seen this.
Yeah, check the
Yeah.
box.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Yeah, definitely that kind of just those unexpected drop-ins with art or nature or food or something,
That's
just like
yeah.
some kind of sense, something that you're going slow with and just
Mm,
allowing. Like I had a moment
mm,
like that with a desert tortoise
mm,
where it came up to our fence line, and I was just sat there, and it just sat there looking at me, and I sat there looking at it for ages, and we
mm,
just had this exchange, and there was like no phone, no nothing. I'm going to take a photo. It's just me and this, and just like it was, and I was just looking into these ancient eyes,
mm,
and it was looking back at me,
mm,
and we just, yeah, and there was just this exchange and something, yeah, I'll never forget. Something again that words can't really, well, words can, but they won't be linear words. They'll be maybe poetry or something like that could come close to it.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
I love those kind of connections with animals. It's so amazing. I love staring at silverbacks.
Oh yeah.
Silverback gorillas just
Wow.
they are.
Wow, I've never had the opportunity to do that, but yeah.
I mean, I've never done that in the wild. Unfortunately, they've been in the zoos when I've had that look at
Mm.
them, and they'll look at me for a bit. And I don't think you're supposed to do that. I think I've heard, but I've had a little connection
Wow.
with them
Yeah.
for a few seconds, and it feels like their eyes are like 1,000 miles deep. It's like
Mm. Yeah.
it's like a dark pool,
Hmm.
prehistoric pool, and you're like, it's like they know something that they can share with you, and you can never really tell anybody what it is.
No, well, exactly. And that's that kind of listening with the eyes and just, again, that presence,
Mm.
which presence is just so overused, but really it is that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I knew we'd go over time.
Yeah.
Well, but that's it's all good. Yeah, thank you, JD. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on or add before we say goodbye?
um I just want to thank the people that gave me the story.
Yeah,
I
I
want
want
to
to thank them too.
Yeah, I want to thank my friend who went through a lot of hard times. Send her a lot of love and kindness, and all those that I've experienced through my life that kind of built the characters and built the situations. Uh, yeah, I even want to thank myself for going through some of those deep, painful times that I had to go through to be able to tell a story, um,
Mm,
that hopefully resonates with some people. I had one friend, and after she got it through my 5 doors on my website, she said, "This story meant so much to me. It felt like it was me in so many aspects." And
mm.
I thought, okay, I can die now.
Yeah.
I thought I really did. Like after she told me that, I felt like, I've done something in a way that I feel is worthy of coming here for, and so
Yeah.
I thank her for reaching out and letting me know that it somehow resonated, you know. So
Yeah.
and finally, thank you for this conversation, because it just helps to uh, open up to new things in a story that you don't think of, that you brought forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. And I really,
And
such a,
one more thing I want
yeah.
to thank you for is, I just want to thank you for all the hard work you've put in with Luna Arcana and in our community here in the desert with everything you've
Thank
done.
you.
It's no small feat to put a magazine like this together. It takes so much effort and dedication and love, because I don't assume you make a lot of money on this.
We
and so,
don't.
and so, you know, thank you for
Oh, yeah,
putting
anyway.
thank you for putting in the time and the love, and to giving artists in the desert here an opportunity to share what we get to share in this magazine, and to have it go out. I mean, I think you said it's at Skylight Books in LA. And
Hmm.
so, you know, you're giving a bunch of artists an opportunity to get in front of the eyes of people in LA. And that, for
Hmm.
one, can build careers, which is awesome. But it also, maybe somebody in LA needs to get touched. And so,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
doing all that kind of business side of it that is a pain in the ass.
Well, thank you. Thank you for appreciating, yeah, us. And yeah, that means a lot, because sometimes you just get stuck in the doing. And yeah.
Yeah. And thank you to your partner in Luna Arcana,
Martine, yeah.
Martine. Thanks to Martine for as well. Thank him so much.
Yeah. Thank you, JD, and thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. And you can find out more about JD at his website, jdrudometkin.com, and I'll be posting all bio and info and links in the little box under the screen on YouTube, which is its technical name. Yes, thanks everyone, and until next time, bye.
Ciao.